going to work with the geometric mean altitude theorem and the geometric mean leg theorem. So let's start with the geometric mean altitude theorem. First of all, we need to remember what an altitude is. So an altitude is a line that's drawn from the right angle to the hypotenuse, and it creates a right angle. That is your altitude. So notice here that BD is my altitude. The theorem says that I can take the altitude and square it, and that is going to equal AD, which is the side of the hypotenuse that touches the leg here, times DC, which is the side of the hypotenuse that does not touch the leg where the altitude is. All right, so let's go ahead and see how these work. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to identify our altitude, which our altitude here is x. And you'll notice that we have a large side to the hypotenuse and a small side to the hypotenuse. So we're going to go ahead and write our equation. So our equation tells us that x squared, the altitude, is equal to the long part of the hypotenuse, 12, times the short part of the hypotenuse, 8. So we're going to have x squared is equal to 96. And then, of course, we need to square root both sides, cancels out the square. This is going to give us x equals, and then we're going to need to take 96 and break it down. So again, I'm going to take and start back with the two numbers that I multiplied. So I'm going to do 12, 8. 12 breaks down to 4, 3. 4 breaks down to 2, 2. 8 breaks down to 4, 2. 4 breaks down to 2, 2. So I have 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find my pairs. So I have a pair of 2's, so they're going to come out of the radical sign. I have another pair of 2's, going to come out and multiply with the 2. And then I have a 3 and a 2 that are left inside. So x is going to equal 4 square roots of 6. Let's take a look at the next one. Again, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to identify our altitude. And in this case, our altitude is 18. So we're going to go ahead and write our equation. So we have 18 squared is equal to the longest part of the hypotenuse, which is 15, times the shortest part of the hypotenuse, which is x. So I'm going to have 324 is equal to 15x, symmetrical. 15x is equal to 324. Divide by 15, divide by 15, and x is going to equal 21.6. So that means the small part of the hypotenuse would be 21.6. The entire hypotenuse would be adding 15 and 21.6 together, which actually tells us this is the larger side of the hypotenuse. Because this is 21.6, we would add them together and that would give us 36.6. All right, now we have what is called the geometric mean for leg theorem. So again, what we're going to do is look at our parts. So this is a leg theorem, which means we're going to be using AB, which is one of the legs of the right triangle. So AB squared, this leg of the large right triangle, is going to equal the entire hypotenuse times the part of the hypotenuse that touches that leg. So you have AC times AD. Now it also works if you're using the other leg. So if I'm using the other leg, I'm using BC. So I would square BC, and it is also going to equal the entire hypotenuse, but now it's going to multiply times DC because that's the part of the hypotenuse that touches that leg. Okay, so let's see how this works. So the first thing that we're going to identify is going to be our leg. So the leg that we're going to use is the leg with the X. So we're going to square that leg. So that's going to be X squared is equal to, and now we're going to make the entire hypotenuse, which would be 26, times just the part of the hypotenuse that touches the leg that I'm using. So 26 times 24. And now we're going to solve. So we're going to do x squared is equal to 624. The square root of x squared is equal to the square root of 624. I'm going to come over here and do 624, break it down. I'm going to start with the 24 and the 26. Break the 24 down into 6 times 4, the 6 into 3 times 2, the 4 into 2 times 2, the 26 into 2 times 13, and now I'm going to circle my prime numbers. So 13, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 3. So now I'm going to look for my pairs. So I have a pair of 2's here, so 2's going to come out. I have a pair of 2's here, so 2's going to come out. And then I have 3 and 13 that will be left inside, and that's what my x is going to equal. So my x is going to equal 4 square roots of 39. And that is the length of that leg of the triangle. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this one now. Again, we are trying to find z, y, and 24. X, y, and z. All right, so the first one that we're going to look for is we're going to use the hypotenuse and leg. So let's see if we can find x. So first of all, we're going to look for the leg. So here is our leg. And we're going to square that. So that's going to be 27 squared is equal to, and then we have the hypotenuse. So the entire hypotenuse is going to be x. And then the part of the hypotenuse that touches the leg is going to be right here, which is going to be 24. So we're going to go ahead and square 27, which is going to give us 729 is equal to 24x. We're going to do symmetrical. 24x is equal to 729. Divide by 24, divide by 24. X is going to equal 30.4. So I know that this hypotenuse is 30.4. So I found x. Next, we can go ahead and we can find y. So let's take a look at y. Y is going to be in this triangle. So I have y in this triangle. Here is my right angle. So I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A squared is going to be y squared plus 24 squared is equal to 27 squared. So I'm going to have y squared plus 576 is equal to 729. 0 pair out the 576. Y squared is going to equal 153. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and square root and square root. And in this case, because it's a measurement, I'm going to go ahead and do y is equal to, and I'll find the decimal answer for that is going to be 12.4. So now I know the y here is 12.4. So the last one that I need to find is going to be z. So in order to find z, I'm going to have, this is the hypotenuse, and I'm going to be able to do a leg and then use the geometric mean leg theorem. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. If this is my leg, so then this is going to be z squared is equal to the entire hypotenuse, which is 30.4, times the small part of the hypotenuse that is touching the leg. So that means we're going to need to subtract 24 and 30.4, which is going to give us 6.4. We're going to multiply that. Z squared is going to equal 194.56 or 0.6. And then you would square root that, and z is going to equal 13.9. So in this case, we found all of our measurements as decimals, and the other ones we left them as radicals. Typically in the instructions, it will tell you whether they want the answers as radicals or whether they want the answers as decimals. But now you know how to use your geometric means for altitude and leg theorem.